Every night when I come in from work, tired from working all day, often I feel the need for poetry. So I come out here to see the old girl. And usually I reach over here and bump the starter once, just to make sure somebody hadn't knocked her out of gear. And then I put the fire to her, and I bump it again. Okay then, you need a little gas, don't you, sweetheart? I like it when she runs slow like that. Everybody's got their own poetry, I guess. This works for me. Okay, Rat Rod World, I'm going to give you a quick lesson in how a brake light sending unit works. This particular one here is an electronic one. They also make one that goes actually into the brake line. Usually they fit on the back of the master cylinder, and they're activated from within with the brake pressure. Those are pretty cool and pretty dependable, but you have to break your brake line open and bleed everything to install them, and it's kind of a lot, you know. For my money and all, this one will be just fine. What you do is you mount this one behind the brake pedal so that when the brake pedal is not depressed, this is mashed in. When you depress the brake pedal and this moves, this makes the light work. And I was just kind of in a sloppy fashion going to show you how that works. So I got my 2 wires from my battery here, and you can see when I put those 2 wires together, it lights up the light. Let me get this right so I can hold it. And when you depress this, light goes out, and when you take it, so what actually happens is when you hit the brake, this comes out, and when this comes out, light comes on. Simple as that. That is the point right there where the actual brake light action happens. What I'll do is I'll mount this underneath the brake pedal on the bottom side, so that when I mash the pedal down and the bottom side goes in like this, it will release this button, and that'll make my brake lights work. It's going to take a little bit of fabricating. The nice thing about it is this thing is threaded, so all I got to do is put a piece of metal there with a hole. I can screw this in until I get to the exact right place, lock it in place with these 2 nuts, and then it should be good. The only concern I have is this is going to be under the car, so this is going to be subject to get splashed with water and mud and stuff. I might make some kind of a little something to cover it over just to shield it a little bit. I don't know what, but anyway, that's the thought I'm having. Well, all I can say is thank the good Lord for floor jacks. I got the old girl all up in the air here. Seems like a good time to go to work on that brake. What am I trying to say? Brake light switch. I'll show you how that's going to work. Okay, here we are up under the old girl, and as I showed you before, this brake light switch needs to be mounted right here in such a way that when this brake is where it is right now, this is depressed. And I don't mean like it needs Prozac. I mean depressed like that button is pushed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fabricate up some kind of a little thing with a hole in it, a little piece of metal that I can spot weld onto the side of that mount right there and attach this to. Okay, I found this piece in my metal bucket. This is a piece that used to be part of the old hood on the old fire truck, and this fits right into it. Seems to me if I get this at the right angle and spot weld it up in there, I should be able to adjust that in and out. That should work just like a pro. So let's give that a shot. Okay, I'll show you what I have before I weld it. Instead of welding this up into place here, I bolted it. I had a bolt that held this brace on. I put a bolt in this piece, brought it down to here, clamped these two pieces together. I have my sending unit in that piece, and it's fully depressed, and there's room to adjust it on both sides, so I can adjust it in and out once I get this done. With this clamped right here, all I have to do pretty much is take this bolt out. See what I'm pointing at. Take this bolt out and make sure that this clamp doesn't move. I can go ahead and unscrew this nylon piece, and then I can weld these two and trim off any of the extra stuff, and then bring it back over here, bolt it into place, and it should work. The reason I like this better than a welded on piece is that I can unbolt it and adjust it and put it back on. If I'm working on the brakes and I need it out of my way, I can get it out of my way. And I don't like the idea of welding in a piece that has to be kind of adjusted exactly right, laying under a car on jack stands, because to be honest with you, it's kind of hard to weld uphill over your head, if you know what I mean. And it just makes a lot more sense to have this be something that is removable. There's not a great deal of pressure on that, so that's plenty strong enough. And by the way, just as a point of interest, these pieces are part of the old hood mechanism on the fire truck, so it's kind of neat to use some old pieces and parts of the old fire truck back on the old girl. So I'll weld that up, we'll put it in place, and then we'll hook a light to it and watch the lights come on and off. That'll be a lot of fun. Okay, here we are. I've set this battery up here, and I'm using this interior dome light to simulate the brakes. I have the brake light sending unit all hooked up down there, so that when I mash that pedal, it releases that little pin on the end like I showed you before. When that happens, voila, we have light. That's how the brake lights work. All I have to do now is run the same type wiring system to the back of the car, to those handy dandy little new lights that I put in a while back, and we'll have brake lights on the back of the car. One more little thing taken care of. Y'all have a nice day. Hey, how you like my new glasses? I found these. It was a pile of junk beside the road with a free sign on it. I stopped and looked. There was a pretty cool old toolbox with a lot of neat stuff in it. Had a couple of pair of these old welder glasses in it. I think they're just the honkinest thing. Don't you think I'm making a real fashion statement with these babies? Woohoo! Plus, I can use them to do my cutting with, which is what I'm about to do. Well, here's the deal. I ought to be asleep. I got to work tomorrow, but sometimes a man just needs to hear the rat rod rumble. It's late at night. Yeah, I'm going to bed in a little bit. But I ain't heard this thing crank in a few days. I just felt the need to fire her up. Let's go see if she'll run. You gonna run for me, old girl? Missed you. Hadn't played with you in a few days now. Let's see what happens when I hit the stop. I got back from taking this little thing for a ride. I noticed it kind of had a whistle noise to it. Couldn't quite figure out what it was, so I came back out here to try to identify it, and when I did, I couldn't get it to crank. And I checked the fire, and it had fire. So I pulled the fuel line off, stuck it down in the can here with the ignition turned off so there's no fire there, and just hit it. And guess what? No gas is coming out of it. Now, it's one of two things have happened. Either my fuel pump has stopped working, or my gas tank isn't picking up. I did check it, and I've got about this much in the bottom of my tank, but it could be that the way that gas tank sets up, it stops sucking gas before it gets empty. First thing I'm gonna do is fill up the gas tank and try it again and see if it starts pumping fuel. And if that doesn't work, I'll be looking at trying to replace that fuel pump or putting an electric fuel pump, which I don't know. If I couldn't find one of these, it might be an electric fuel pump might be the way to go. Anyway, I'll keep you posted on how this turns out. Okay, that didn't work. I put gas in the tank and it still isn't picking anything up. So what I'm doing here is a test. I've gone to the past the filter to eliminate the filter being stopped up. I put a line directly into this little tuna fish can with gas in it. And I got the other line running out to here. Now, if this pumps the gas out of that tuna fish can, then I'll know the pump is working, and I'll go first to the filter and then to the tank. But otherwise, I'm thinking then I'll think the pump has stopped working. And before I rush off to buy a new pump, I'll probably take this one apart, because when I first got this car, I had to take this pump apart and clean it out. It was full of crap. So let's turn the car over. I'm probably going to set the camera down over here somewhere so I can kind of steady all this stuff. There's no fire to the engine, and that's important. I don't really want to set my engine on fire. I've done it before. I don't want to do it today. So I'm going to set you guys over there, kind of hold on to the can, and just spin this over rather quickly with no fire and see what happens. That's actually pumping the gas out of that. That's working. Okay, so I've just eliminated the pump. The pump is working. I've got gas in the can there. I don't think you can see it, but I do. So the next thing to do is to figure out why we're not getting it to here. And I guess the first place to look would be at the filter. So I'll cut this off and we'll take a look at that. Okay, I went and got me another filter. I probably won't use this filter for long, but it'll be good enough to test it with. Because it's plastic, I don't feel good about it sitting on the motor. So next time I go to a car store, I get another metal one. But this one, when I blow through there, there's a pretty good stream of air. This one, not so much. So I'm thinking maybe that's it. So we'll give it a try. Okay, that did the trick. You can actually see there's gas inside the filter, and there's gas coming out of the thing here. So my problem today was the filter. Now, I said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to leave this filter on here just because I don't feel good about a plastic filter sitting on a hot motor. But for today, it'll do. I'm just going to crank it up, make sure I've solved the problem. We don't have a parts store near here, and I got this at the tractor place. It's actually a diesel filter, so I'm going to just hook it back up, crank it up, feel good about it, and next time I'm in town, I'll get me a real metal filter and put on there, and it should be problem solved. Okay, just to illustrate, he's running now, so I think problem solved. I want to run enough to charge the battery a little bit. Well, not much I love better than having a day off work. I figure the very first thing I do is get both the hot rods out, let them at least sit out in the daylight rather than being locked up in the shed all summer, since they wind up being locked up out here all winter anyway. So I'm going to pull both of them out. Alrighty, that gives me a little space to work in, and it gets the old girls out of the house into the real world, and that's a beautiful thing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we've done and what we're going to do next. The old hot rod is running pretty good. I swapped carburetors. I put the one that I was using to crank this with in the winter back on the Rambler. And it actually works quite well. And then I took the other one that I had cleaned out and reworked, which was originally on the Rambler way back when, on here, and this worked out very well. The thing cranks up and runs, I think, quite good right now for where it's at. Having said that, I'm trying to think, okay, what is my next best thing to do? Least amount of money and most sort of bang for my buck. I'm thinking about the timing chain, and I'll tell you why. Back in the old days, on General Motors engines, I'm talking about 60s and 70s, they get 70, 80,000 miles on them, and you'd kind of know that the timing chain was wore out. It wouldn't run as good as it used to, and at some point that timing chain would break. And one way to test that is to turn this motor over and watch the distributor, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop that distributor cap right off of there. And I'm going to turn the motor in one direction, and I'm going to turn it in the reverse direction. If the timing chain is good and tight, then the rotor button should turn back in the reverse direction as soon as I turn the crankshaft. If the timing chain is loose, there'll be a little play, there'll be a little delay there. So what I've done is I got me a big old wrench here. I'm going to put it on the big bolt down the bottom of the motor. First I'm going to turn it clockwise, just so I can say that it is. Okay, now I can see, I don't know if you can see this. I'll put the camera over here where maybe you can. Okay, here's my rotor button. I don't want to sit there. That makes this rather hard to do. We'll get it right though. Oh shoot. I'll sit you up here on the breather. That'll work maybe. Okay, can you see that now? This is kind of an exercise in how to get your camera to stand up straight. Maybe. No, that ain't gonna work either. Okay, never mind. Back where you was. Y'all can't behave. You have to sit over here. Anyway, I'm gonna reverse the turn, and if this chain is tight, then that thing will change directions and it'll start to turn as soon as I start to move this wrench. I am moving it now, and it's not turning. And it's not turning, and it's not turning, and it's not turning, and it's not turning, and now it's turning. Wow, that is a lot of play. Which tells me exactly what I thought. One of the things I noticed about this motor is I can crank it up and it'll run pretty good, and I can take it out and drive around the driveway, and then every so often it'll take a bad lope and kind of sputter around, and, you know, act like it wants to quit, and then speed up and slow down. The reason it's doing that is because there's so much play in that timing chain that it's just, the timing is all over the place. And if you think about it, when you accelerate, it kind of pulls the chain tight, and then when you let off, the chain flops. And so it's like your timing goes from being here to being here, and it's just all over the place, and it's really inconsistent, which means the motor just, it doesn't run very well at all. And how are you going to tune it up under those conditions? I mean, if you think about it, if I adjust the valves, and the camshaft and the crankshaft are not in sync, then how am I even going to know where to adjust the valves at? Same thing with setting points and all sorts of things. So what this experiment has done is it's told me my next step is going to be to replace the timing chain. Now back in the old days we used to do these things in the car. This is a Cadillac motor, and I'm going to consult the manual to see what I have to do. I know I'm going to have to take off the harmonic balancer, the water pump, things of that nature. The timing chain sits right there. I'm not going to go ahead and put a cam in it, because if I do, that leads to cam bearings, that leads to lifters, that leads to new valves, that leads to a head job, and before you know it, I've got $500 or $600 in it, and I'm not ready to spend that kind of money on it right now. But I would be willing to do the timing chain and kind of leave everything else just as it is, because I believe if at least that much, it would make a bigger difference to how this engine is running than anything else I could do. One more thing I'll point out, I took the breather that I have been running on that one and put it over here on this Rambler. It's a more modern looking breather. When I bought it off a picture off eBay. I thought it was an old-fashioned looking breather, but when I got it, it didn't seem like it was. This breather really is an old-fashioned breather. This is very much like what people used to have on their cars back when I was a kid, back in the 60s and 70s. So even though it's not awfully big or fancy or anything, it's good and old-fashioned, and it suits me just fine. So that's enough talk for one night. I'll go in and look at my repair manual and see what it's going to take to get that timing chain changed. Y'all have a nice day. Okay, I speeded the timing up a little bit, idled it down a little bit on the carburetor. Once I get that carburetor right and idle it all the way down, then I can adjust the carburetor. Give that little stumble, and then you idle it just a little bit too advanced. I'm going to move it just a hair. carburetor coming into the gun. Still have that little hesitation, so I'm going to bump the line it up a hair more. See how she cranks now. That's pretty good. I think I'm okay with that. I like it. Just wait till I get her all tuned up. Woo. Well, good morning, Red Rod World. Today I'm going to move the battery. I had the battery originally mounted in the back of the car, which put it back there, all the way in the back. And I have all this wire that runs up and down the side of the frame. And I've just decided that's too far. It's too much wire. It's, you know, you lose power when you have that much wire and it's that far from the engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it right here. And I'm going to build a little box for that battery to sit in. I'm going to attach that box to the frame and to that cross member, right about where it's sitting now, except it's going to come up so that the battery posts are just below the floor, and a little bit of the battery will hang down below the frame. It won't hang down any lower than, say, the oil pan or any of that other stuff there. Not low enough so that it would be likely to get drug on the ground. But I do want to move that battery and get it to a place a lot closer to the starter. So that's what I'm going to work on this morning. See, I got this bit of metal over here, and I'm going to do some cutting and form and fit it into a little battery box so that I can sit down inside that frame and sort of spot weld into place. Okay, what I've done is sort of spot welded it down in there. That's the box where the battery is going to sit. I'll test fit the battery in there and then see if I like it. And if I do, I'll come back and weld it all up and wire it. And we'll go from there. Okay, here it is before I put the battery box in there. Not too pretty, but I think quite functional. When the battery sits down in there with the battery terminals on it, the floor will clear it. And I'll put something on top of it that won't conduct electricity, a piece of rubber or something like that, and have a little flip-up door where I can flip it up and take the battery out. In fact, I'm going to get me a tag plate and lay down on the bottom of that. Let me go get that right now. Okay, that's where she's going to sit. I've got the other piece of cable around here. I'm going to fix the end on it, attach it. I think I want to use that little cutoff switch that I've got for it, so I'm going to work on that next. Okay, she's in there, and that's where she's going to stay. I've got this little adjustable hickey-doo on here that I can turn, which will basically kill the battery, which is a safety precaution. See, when I hit the starter right now, nothing happens. Then I can tighten that up and hit the starter, and she goes. One of the things that was important to me is to have this thing crank on a dead cold start. She's been sitting here for ever since last time I messed with it, which was several days ago. And I did reach over and readjust the choke a little bit this morning, but then I hit the starter and no gas, no nothing, and she cranked right up. Well, maybe I talked too fast. Okay, I'll give her a little gas. That's a dead cold start, and she's starting real good. She's cranking real good too. It made a big difference to get that cable shortened up. Right now, the cable from the starter just runs from right here to the other side of the firewall, rather than running all the way to the back of the car. Makes the turn over and act a whole lot better. Oh, I love that. That's honking. I don't see how you could ask for anything better than that. Okay, so that's my little project for the morning. Now I guess I'll go work on some other stuff. Y'all have a nice day. I'm just out playing with the old girl today. Since I don't have it registered, I can't get it out on the street and drive it much. My neighbor's not here and the kids are at school. I figured I'd get out here and mess around in the driveway and play with it a little bit out on the paved part. I'm going to take it back up and put it in the shed though. What I need to do is drive this thing a good bit. That'll help me work the bugs out of it. But in the meantime, I can play with it. I'm trying to get a little work done on the house and have a little fun with the car too. Anyway, here we go. yeah, I just remember she got a vacuum leak I meant to fix. I'll work on that another day. I just found a malfunction when I shift the second gear. I can't steer because I bust my knuckles on my shifting. You see this? You seeing it on the camera? See? That's what I was talking about. A few little technical difficulties I have to work out. See my knuckles? Bang, bang. It don't work. Yeah, yeah, well, I just discovered another little technical difficulty. If you'll notice, my seat is not sitting on anything, and it slid back. It slid back so that it's jammed up under the back of this thing here. I'm driving along and I'm all folded up. Somebody said the other day, they said, you know, you scare me driving around without a floor. And I said, well, you ought to see what I'm sitting on. we get those little things worked out. Okay, this is us giving it a test. See, we're sitting on real seats, on a real floor. It's not bolted down yet, but it's a huge improvement.
My feet aren't dangling.
Yeah, Tricia said last time she rode in it, she had to sit on the back there. Now she's got a real floor to sit on. So, I'll go crank it, go for a little ride, and see what you think. Here, you pull this. You drive the camera. I'll drive the car.
Okay.
Feel it.
Feels pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, it's a big improvement.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's better when we get the seat bolted in.
Yep.
got him.
That is why it's so much better this time. The last time I was at a...
Oh, yeah. Jump down the floor.
Exactly the dog. Hey, Jackie!
Hey, Jackie. Oh, those folks in there. I need some rear view mirrors. I never can quite tell where my back tire is.
Yeah.
I'm always afraid I'll bang into the side of the house. Pretty sweet.
Look at that. That was awesome.
Yeah. Okay, today's the day we're going to put the timing chain back in the rat rod. Or I shouldn't say back in. We're going to put the new timing chain in. What that involves, first thing would be to drain the radiator, take the radiator off, take the water pump off, get a puller and pull the pulley and the harmonic balancer. I may not have to, yeah, I will have to pull the harmonic balancer off. And then there's a plate on the engine down there. If I can get all that apart and back together without breaking off any bolts, that will be a success. I'm going to get to it. We'll see how it goes. This is the harmonic balancer and the pulley. Normally you have to have a harmonic balancer puller to pull that thing out. I just started tapping this one and it just came out in my hands. So I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, but at least it saves me a lot of work. Now somewhere on this thing there will be a timing mark. I'm assuming maybe this is it. I'll clean this up and find out for sure. See that little notch right there? I don't know if you can see it. There's a little notch right there and there's a little pin right here on the timing chain cover, and this is, use a timing light, and the timing light, when it flashes, it'll show where that notch is in relationship to that pin, which allows you to set the timing if you want to do it by the book. Okay, my friends, this is what the inside of the timing chain cover looks like. There should be a gasket here. I guess there is, but it's pretty well crushed and dead looking. I do have new gaskets for everything. You can see someone squirted a boatload of silicone in here trying to fix the leak, and I doubt if that was working. This is the timing chain right here. Big gear, little gear. I've got a new big gear and a new chain. This is the play that's in this chain. I'll just wiggle that a little bit so you can see it. This should be snug and tight. Somewhere on here there's 2 points. There's 2 timing points, and the way you set the timing on this thing is you find the 2 timing points and you match them up. There should be a timing point on this gear down here. There's a big gear down below. Let's slide this little thing on. Somewhere on one of these, somewhere along in here when I clean this up, there's going to be a little circle. That's going to be a timing point, and there'll be a little circle on this one. When I find those 2 points and line them up, then that'll mean the timing is all synchronized and correct. What I'll do is I'll turn this and clean it up and find those points before I pull this off. And then when I put the new one back on here, it'll all be set. You notice this is loose on one side and tight on the other. When the motor is running, the crankshaft is turning, it is pulling the chain, which keeps one side tight. And when you slow down, you know, it tends to flop. I mean, this thing can play and turn. This is attached to the camshaft. This is attached to the crankshaft, and this is what synchronizes the camshaft and the crankshaft. So just thought I'd show you all that. I'll get a bolt back in here, get a wrench on that, and get it where I can turn it, and we'll find those timing points, and we'll pop this gear off, put the new ones on there, clean her up, put her back together. Should be good as gold. Okay, here's my timing marks. There's one circle right here above the tip of that screwdriver right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a circle right here. These 2 teeth need to be matching each other when the new chain goes on. And right now there's a little bit of play in both sides, so that seems right about right. I'm going to grab the new gear. It should have a circle in the same place. Okay, here is the new chain and the new gear. And the new gear, if you look at it, here's my timing mark and the gear right here. And you've got a bolt here and here. You notice a little pin size thing on either side, and they're made in such a way. You've got a small hole here and a little bit larger hole here, and I'm thinking that's exactly what you're going to find. When you look, it's all covered up in grease right now, but when you uncover this, I'm thinking there's going to be a small hole right here and a larger hole right here. Those are going to be pins with one at the top and one at the bottom to help make sure you can't put that gear on any way but right. As I look at it, it looks to me like this top gear could turn a little bit so that these two holes are straight up and down. There's my new chain. First thing I'm going to do is kind of get it lined up to the right spot, and then I'll pop it loose, see if it'll come off, put the new one back on there, and then we'll be ready to move on pretty quickly from there. Okay, my friend, she's in there. I'm just going to do some cleaning up and then put her back together. Okay, here's kind of a quick interesting point I'll make about timing. I showed you where the timing marks matched up on the crankshaft and the camshaft pulley. You'll notice when I put the harmonic balancer back on there, the pointer is pointing right at top dead center. Right here, when I washed this, I found another mark with a 7 on it. I'm thinking that's probably 7 degrees before top dead center. That's probably where this thing sets at. I can consult the book later and figure that out. But anyway, she's back together. I'm going to piece her back together. I'm going to change the plug back here for the temperature sending unit. I've got a new sending unit, a mechanical one I'm going to put in here. And then put her all back together and throw some antifreeze in her and crank her up. Okay, she's running. It took me a little while to get the timing figured out on it. And it still isn't exact. I'm going to eventually reset the timing, readjust the carburetor, readjust the choke, probably put a timing light on here and do a bunch of stuff like that. But basically it's running and it's running good. It doesn't do that kind of off rhythm bobbly thing like used to. You'd race it up and then when it come back down, it kind of go kind of like it had a cam, high performance cam, which it doesn't. Now when it comes back down, it's steady. It just keeps the same rhythm because that cam chain isn't flapping around in there anymore. Don't fire it up much here. Hi guys, I'm out here working on the hot rod, and I just thought I'd show you this because I think it's kind of cool. You have to figure the angle of each one of these boards. By the way, what I'm doing is notching these boards. This is what kind of like we call a lap straight if you're building boats, which I don't know much about. But in order to get this angle, this board needs to come from a wider point to a narrower point. Same thing over there, but you have to measure from one side to the other to get your length. So what I'm doing, this little framing square is the same width as these boards. So basically what I'm doing is sitting it right in the groove right here. And then I'm taking a measurement from the tail end of it up to that end, which so far I've been running about 1 inch. And I'm cutting my board 1 inch shorter on one end than the other. And then I'm measuring from this end to that end on both sides in order to get my angle over there. So far it's working pretty good. I'm liking it. I think my first groove was a little deeper than my second groove, but still good, and I'm still liking it. So just thought I'd share that with you. I don't have a floor all the way up under the front where the pedals are, but I like the idea of having it. Just really feels a lot better than what I've been wobbling around on. Well, nothing's bolted down there. Even without it bolted down, it sure doesn't feel a lot better. It makes a world of difference, to be honest with you. I had the power thing, let's go ahead and finish this up. Okay then. Look at here, I got a floor. See? Ain't bolted down yet, but isn't that beautiful? Yes, sir. Yesterday, this friend of mine sent her son over to borrow a ladder, and he came over and he asked me if he could see the hot rod. I don't even know how he knew I had one, but I brought him in here and we looked at it, and he's liking it quite a lot. So I told him, I said, well, you bring the ladder back, we'll get her out and go for a ride. Well, when he came back, he brought a friend of his, and I took both of them for a ride in this thing. We went out and, took a little spin back around the quarry and all. Lord have mercy, them two boys was just grinning from ear to ear when they left here. And that was awful fun, We'd ride around. I'd kick her around a little bit every now and then, spin the back tires around, and well, they sure was liking it. It just, it makes you feel kind of good when you can build an old, bucket of bolts out of rusty pieces and parts and take somebody for a ride and just see them enjoy it that much. Makes me think that, heck, maybe when I retire, I ought to start something like the circus, hot rod rides. Put up a sign out front and have people come back. No, I'm just joking. I wouldn't do that. No, I'd probably take people for a ride for nothing. I can't imagine taking money for it, but it is fun to think about how much enjoyment you can get out of something like this. Anyway, it's been a long day. I worked hard today and a little bit frustrating. I spent money to pay somebody else to work on a car for me, and before I even got it home, it was broke down again. Well, that made me feel extra frustrating. And sometimes when I'm feeling frustrated, I just come out here and spend a little time with a hot rod. I don't think she'll crank right at the moment. She might surprise me. She hasn't been cranking much lately. Usually she has to run a little bit every so often to keep gas up in the fuel line. But wouldn't it be fun if she did? Let's just try. Whoops. Better if I take her out of gear. Especially when I'm spinning like this. Well, she didn't crank that time. She did crank. Uh-oh. Let's try that again. Yeah, it's cheaper than therapy, alcohol, drugs, or wild women, and you got more left when it's over with. You got a good rumble going for it this time of the night. Hope my neighbors don't sleep. I think you sound a little extra good right now. Make it just a mood down there. That's just the kind of poetry I like. That's just the kind of thing I need on some days, Feel a little bit frustrated with a thing or two. I don't pay people to work on my cars hardly ever, but I got a couple of foreign cars, and I got a pretty good mechanic. He usually does me a real good job. I paid him about twice what I was expecting to pay today. Before I got home, the car quit. It's sitting in a parking lot down the road right now, so that made me feel kind of bummed out. Anyway, it's good to come out here and hear the old girl run. It just kind of reinvigorates my soul. Y'all have a nice day. I just want to drive it for fun. That's what this is. That's pretty good. You know, I was doing all that driving with one hand. She steers good. She's shifting a little better. Yeah, I was thinking the other day I was having a hard time getting the second, but I didn't seem to have any trouble with any of the gears today. I suppose, you know, it's all trial and error. You drive a little bit, you learn a little bit, you make a few things. Two things I'm thinking about wanting to do sooner than later is get all the wiring straightened out on this thing, get the lights working on it, brake lights and everything, and get a floor in it. Get the body tied down good. This body's actually kind of flopping about a little bit. It's not really tied down as good as it should be. So I got a few things to do, but geez, I'm having fun with it. I'll share this with you. Here's a treasure I found the other day. It's an old Stuart Warner speedometer. Goes up to 60 miles an hour. Fits beautifully in that hole right there in my dash. I don't have it in there because I got to make the bracket for the back of it. It lights from the back, which I like. I've got some other old gauges here, and I'm going to try to get rid of these newer looking gauges and fill this thing up with these old gauges. And I like that it lights from the back. That's the way they used to. In other words, they got a little glass window right here, and you put a light in here, and then the light just shines through the little glass window. So you put this in here, and you maybe have another gauge here and here, and put two little lights on the back of the dash right here, and they would light up those three gauges. I did put this is new. I put a new mechanical Stuart Warner gauge in here, temperature gauge, because I had a temperature gauge that wasn't reading real accurate, and I wasn't really comfortable with it. I found this other gauge. This is an amp gauge with big numbers. It's kind of got an old-fashioned look to it, and I think that will look good with this one. And I'm kind of going to look for me another one like that to replace my oil pressure gauge with. I think those would give me the right look in there as far as my gauges go. Okay, I'll explain the technology of my madness here for you. Having done the welding, the next thing to do is to put these boards in. What I'm going to do is take my big ugly grinder over there, and I'm going to grind off the rough edges, and then I'm going to sit this piece down in there. And the way I'm going to work this is that I'm going to put a bolt through this piece of oak. I'm going to mount probably a big old nut inside here that a bolt can go through, not screw into, but go all the way through, where I can put a nut on the bottom side of it. And what's going to help hold this body down on the frame is the wood itself will be bolted to the frame. It'll lay over these side rails and it will hold the body down. It'll kind of press the body down tight on there. I'm thinking while I'm building this of something like this. If I ever want to get the body off, I can unbolt these things, unbolt these bolts that hold the corners of the body in there and pull the floor out and pull the body off. I don't know why. To me, it just seems like it's as important to me to be able to take this thing apart if I want to, as it is to put it together. And I don't want to put it together in such a way where it would be too big of a huge hassle to take it apart. So I'm gonna grind the board a little bit, make it a little smoother on the edges, set it over in here, drill my holes, line up my bolts, weld that nut right there on the inside of the frame, and get me a carriage bolt that'll fit through it, and put a bolt and a lock washer on the bottom side of it, and that will be board number one. I made my boards so that each one overlays the other, so that each one will kind of tie the other down. My other bit of thinking is if it rains in here, the rainwater would hopefully pass out of here. This is obviously an open car, and at some point it's going to get rained on, so I don't want to make a watertight tub that I'll have to bail out like a boat. So anyway, I'm going to get to work on that. If y'all don't think I'm doing it right, just write to Richard Peak, Post Office Box BR549, way up yonder in Glory Land. Amen and hallelujah. Okay, here's what I was talking about. See, I'm going to weld that nut right to the frame, put the carriage bolt right down through it, and then pull the oak piece down tight over that. Getting the nut located was the hardest part. I looked like a magician. I had mirrors and clamps and everything else over there. Like a rat rod surgeon or something. But I'm going to weld that in place and test it. If that works, I'll put it down our first board. Okay, I got the first bolt in place. I can see that the sun's coming up, so I'll go check the time. I want to be up in the Department of Motor Vehicle about the time they open this morning. Get myself all legalized as an official driver of the road. But I thought I'd show you that bolt welded to the frame there with the carriage bolt down through it. I should be able to stick a nut and lock washer on the end of that. I went ahead and wrapped my lines in leather because for one thing, I didn't want to weld around a gas line or a brake line. I had a buddy of mine burn the brake line in two with a welder one time in his shop, driving his 57 Chevy out. Realized he didn't have no brakes once he got going and ran into the side of his garage with it, and that made quite a mess out of things. I don't want to do that, and plus with the gas line right there is a real opportunity for a fellow to burn himself to death. I didn't want to do that either. So I wrapped it all up in leather, and while I had it on there, I thought, well, that's nice. It gives a little padding against the frame there because it was pretty close. So I just went ahead and wrapped that leather around, put some clamps on there, and that will hold it. I think I'm going to do this other side up right quick, bolt that down, and then go in and see when the DMV opens and see if I can get myself down there early so I can get all that stuff out of the way. Okay, there you have it, one board in place. Good and solid and firm. Now, that's how you build a hot rod, build a house, or do anything else. You do it one board at a time, one nail at a time, one screw at a time. I'm going to go take care of some other things I need to do this morning, and I'll come back to this. My next two boards are going to attach together, and the seat is going to be bolted to them, and there's going to be little oak wedges up underneath them so that the seat tilts back just a little bit. That's going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more fabrication, so like I say, I'll go take care of the other stuff I need to do this morning, then I'll come back and I'll work on that some more. Anyway, it's progress. It's slow, but it's progress. That's how we do it. Well, I guess this is as good a time as any to make a movie. I have done three things. I've got my floor bolted in up to the part where up here it'll have a hinge on it for the battery and for the brakes, and my seats are bolted in. Not permanently bolted, but everything's bolted in place enough so that I can kind of see what it feels like. And I also redesigned my shifter. If you'll notice from back here, you can see it sticking up, you know, when you're behind the car. And when I had this wrench on here before, I had it on so that it came off and went down and then curled back up. And what I did was I reversed the bend in it, so when it comes off, it comes immediately up and then out to the side. And when this piston sits right, it sits fairly close to level, which is the look I wanted. You know, that's the way I envisioned that should look, not with the piston all hanging off to the side there. So I'm happy. I'm very happy. I haven't jumped in it yet. I'm about to. First time with the seats bolted down, getting in the car, and oh, I like that shifter. See, it doesn't. I'm not really banging my leg into it or anything. That's neutral there. So let's just try the gears. There's first, second. Second's a little close to the steering wheel, and that's something I ran into before, because when you're shifting it and you go to turn it and you hit your knuckles on that doesn't work. So what I might do is put another bend right here and then get this out just a little further. Anyway, first, probably easier if I crank this thing. That would be third and fourth. That would be fifth. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put another bend in this piece in order to get it away from the steering wheel. All right, I've actually changed the shifter again. Well, you saw a while ago I was in the car. It was too close to the steering wheel when it was in first and second. So. And I made it a little taller. I added a wrench. It's a 2-wrench shifter now. My dad said he used to live on a 2-mule farm when he was a boy. I've got a 2-wrench shifter. Anyway, and I like it. It gives me a little extra leverage on that transmission. It actually feels like it shifts pretty good up there. I thought it would be big, awkward, gummy, and in the way, but it ain't. I guess there's a reason why they put them big shifters on them old cars. Anyway, I think the next thing we need is a test drive. Maybe I'll see if my sweetie would like to ride along, and even though I haven't finished the floor up in there, and I will, but that'll be easy to do. I'm gonna hinge some pieces to go in there, but I think it might be fun to take a ride with the new shifter and with the seats bolted down. So I'll go see if she's interested in a ride. Well, I'll show you what I'm up to here today. This is an old. This is actually a project that I decided not to take on. This is a good running old Ford Windstar. Got an excellent motor and transmission, but the body's rusted and it doesn't have a title. I've got one out back. It's got an excellent body, but the engine's bad. I was going to drop the subframe and swap the engine and transmission, but you know, I just don't have patience for working on new cars much. I don't mind working on the hot rod because that sort of inspires me, but working on new cars just doesn't do a thing for me. So I decided to let it go. What I did do is take out the emergency brake handle and cable, and and I've got the cable loose back here. I had to beat that back drum off with a hammer because it was rusted on there. But I got one more cable to get off of here. And my thinking is those cables, if I ever need to put emergency brakes on the hot rod over there, all the setup should work. I'd just as soon not put the brakes on there, but I'm thinking to get it inspected and legal, they might require it. And I'd rather have all this stuff if they do require it than have to go out and buy it somewhere. So I figured I'd pull it all off this one before it goes to the crusher. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Okay, that worked out good. I got the brake switch and a neat little door jack that actually might be good to stuff away inside the rat rod there somewhere. Just a pretty good trailer hitch. Run that thing. And I'm thinking if I ever need to use it, I can take this handle and these lines and fabricate up a brake handle, put it between those seats. I'd have to shorten these lines, and I'm sure do some work to make it all fit. But at least I got something to work with if I ever do decide I want to go that way. So that's a good thing. Anyway, little by little. Okay, the Trisha Makeda is coming out, and then we're going to go for a test drive. So, yes, sir, I'm excited. You want to run the camera?
Sure.
You can be the leading lady, and the cameraman, and the director, and you can be in charge of the production department too, as well as being the camera.
Are we on?
We're running.
We're running.
Yeah, you see that little red hickey up in the corner?
Okay.
Here, no, up here somewhere. See a little red hickey there? That little red hickey that says record?
Yeah.
That's what that means. Okay, we're testing the new shifter. What you need there? When I come over here.
Good grief.
That's why we're testing it. You got your insurance laid up? You got insurance for this?
Yeah, really. I don't know.
Like that. I like the seatbelt going down.
That's pretty high.
That's high, yeah. Every man wants to have a bigger. Sorry about holding the floor, and I'll work on that next.
Yep. Yeah, a little hole in the floor. But seats don't move.
It's an improvement.
It is. that, baby.
You want me to put a seatbelt in next?
I'm going what?
You want a seatbelt?
Yeah.
Put a seatbelt in next.
I think at some point you're going to need to keep driving like that.
You like
Get
it.
right out of the car.
You like it. I know you like it. Are we still recording?
Huh? Yes, we are.
I thought if we weren't, we'd have to do it all over again.
Yeah, that's it.
I got to move some junk before I go to the front track. That's good enough for now. We'll dedicate this movie to 63 Impala two-door who's on his way to the 100-car pileup as we speak.
Yeah.
I ain't going to get there this year, but maybe next year.
Uh-huh.
Whee!
Whee!
Well, good morning, Rat Rod World. I've been up since about 4 a.m. and the sun hadn't come up yet, but hey, we got stuff to do, so I'm going to get busy. I'm going to be doing a good bit of work outside today. My daughter is picking up the new Saab. That's the black one, the free one that somebody gave me, and I've got her red one over here, her old one. I'm going to pull the battery out and the radio out of it and get it all ready for her, but since the sun's not up yet, and since I've kind of made up my mind to do some work outside today instead of inside, I just thought I'd steal some of these early dark hours and maybe get a little quick work done on the hot rod. Been neglecting her a little bit lately because I've been working working inside. I just thought it'd be a real nice time to just go ahead and, even if I just got 2 or 3 of these boards bolted down and got the seats attached to them, that would be a huge deal. Because right now when you jump in it and go for a ride, you got all these floorboards bouncing around. It kind of makes you feel still a little bit uncertain. Better than it was when I didn't have any floor at all. But I was thinking, hey, this morning I could, take the rambler outside. I'll probably push this up onto the concrete. But I think I've got a little weld that I want to do in the process. And then work on it till the sun comes up. When the sun comes up, I can go out there and do what I need to do on those Saabs and get them ready. And then I got to go to town and get my driver's license renewed later. I looked at it the other day and it's been expired since March. Can you imagine that? What's this, November? So anyway, I'll get to work on this. We'll see how much work I can get done before the sun comes up. I'm in a pretty quick and dirty mood this morning. I'm not feeling around messing around with this stuff much. I just want to get it done. That happens to me a lot. I have a project and I can sit and debate on how it should go, and then I can go and sit and ponder it for hours and hours, or I can just go get it done and say, that's going to be good enough. That's one of the sweet things about building a rat rod, is it's good enough. Anyway, I want you to have a quick look at what I built in the floor. There, I hope you got a good chance to see that. Oh, one more glance. I don't want you to take too close a look. Oh, I'm afraid you'll see my mistakes. Okay, one more. Okay, that's good. Y'all see that now? Yeah, y'all got that all so that when you build your own, you know how to do that? I'll show you one more time. Okay, good. Thanks for looking now. And now we put the wood on top. Okay, I'm sorry. I guess that wasn't very nice. I'll show you a bit more. I didn't do anything very fancy. I've got a bar that goes around the corners of the car, that ties the corners of the car kind of to itself, and that bar sits over the frame rails. The body is bolted back here and up there, and the bar reinforces those places. This sheet here in the middle, this big sheet, is just sitting here, but it's sitting here in such a way that it's wedged in. I've got two little angled pieces of iron underneath, and it can't go forward because it tenses up between the angle, and it can't go backwards because it hits these big spring mounts here. These two little braces that I put in here are welded on the front but not on the back, and there's a reason for that. I want to be able to, if I ever want to, unbolt this floor and lift out this big panel so that I pretty much got this area all free in case I want to do any work in here around my drive shaft, the back of the transmission, whatever. And you know, these are welded here so that they're tied to the firewall up front on the back here, and they're tied to the sides of the body here, and then back here they just rest on this big piece. My seat is going to sit right along in this area, and I've done the same thing over here. I've got a bar that runs up to a piece that connects up there around to the firewall and to that piece that runs down the side, and I'm working around that brake cylinder and everything so that I want it to be around that. The wood is going to sit on top of that, but I didn't want it to be in such a place where I wouldn't be able to get to everything I need to get to up there. So that's it. I've showed you my ugly work now, so you can write me letters and tell me what a horrible technician I am and how I'm a disgrace to the Rat Rod Hall of Fame and anything else you want to say, because I don't care.